What if Anakin told Padme that Palpatine was Sidious instead of Mace Windu? What would happen then? Let's find out. So in this timeline, the deviation would occur as Anakin is piloting his speeder back to the Jedi Temple after learning that Palpatine is Sidious. Let's begin. As Anakin piloted his EDA to act as class-light interceptor through the bustling skylines of Coruscant, his mind raced with the weight of the revelation he had just received. His initial instinct was to make for the Jedi Temple, to confide in Master Windu about Palpatine's true identity as the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. Yet, as the towering spires of the temple loomed in the distance, doubt crept into Anakin's mind. He would have preferred to share this information with Obi-Wan, his former master and closest confidant, or even the wise Master Yoda, but both were light years away, embroiled in different conflicts. Anakin's grip tightened on the controls as he contemplated the consequences of revealing this information to Mace Windu. Would the stern Jedi Master immediately march to the Senate, lightsaber in hand? Would he attempt to arrest Palpatine, or worse, eliminate him on the spot? A cold dread settled in Anakin's stomach as he realized that Palpatine might be his only hope to save Padme from the fate he had foreseen in his nightmares. A frustrated growl escaped Anakin's lips, barely audible over the hum of the Interceptor's twin ion engines. He couldn't keep this monumental secret to himself, but the wrong move could jeopardize everything he held dear, Anakin realized. In a moment of impulse, Anakin yanked the control yoke, veering sharply out of the main traffic lane. He then brought the starfighter to a halt, hovering amidst the golden glow of Coruscant's setting sun. As the last rays of daylight glinted off the transparent steel of the nearby buildings, Anakin's thoughts turned to Padme, his beloved wife who had always been there for him, the one person who truly understood him. Without fully processing the implications, he made his decision. Anakin's fingers flew over the comms panel, inputting the frequency for Padme Amidala's personal line. And soon the Senator of Naboo answered. "Padme," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "I need to see you immediately. It's crucial. Can you meet me at your apartment?" Anakin asked. Padme was engrossed in reviewing legislation in her senatorial office when Anakin's Sergeant Cole came through. Sensing the distress in her husband's voice, she immediately assured him. "All right, Anakin, I'll be there soon. Just wait for me," she finished. With practiced efficiency, Padme delegated the pending work to her aide, Tekla Minau, and hurried out of her office. She made her way to the executive building's expansive hangar, where her official Ryan 327 airspeeder awaited. The sleek, open cockpit vehicle with its distinctive curves and chrome finish stood out among the other senatorial transports. As Padme piloted the airspeeder through Coruscant's twilight sky, her mind raced with possibilities. What could have Anakin so agitated? The war was taking its toll on everyone, but this seemed different, more urgent. Upon arriving at her apartment complex, Padme deftly maneuvered the Ryan 327 onto a private landing platform. And as she walked into her apartment, she immediately caught sight of Anakin pacing back and forth in the main living area. "Anakin," she called out as she entered, her senatorial robes rustling with her quick strides. "What happened? You look—" But before she could finish, Anakin turned to her, his eyes wild with a mix of fear, anger, and confusion. "Padme," he began, his voice trembling. "Everything we believed, it's all been a lie." Padme approached him cautiously, reaching out to take his hand. Anakin slowed down. "What do you mean?" Anakin took a deep breath, his mechanical hand clenching and unclenching. "It's the Chancellor," he said, the words stumbling out. "He's the Sith Lord we've been searching for. Padme, he's Darth Sidious." Padme looked at him in shock. "What? How do you know that, Anakin?" "He told me himself," Anakin continued, resuming his pacing. The last light of day filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. "He's been manipulating everything, Padme. The Republic, the Separatists, the entire war, it's all been orchestrated by him, by Darth Sidious." Padme sank onto a nearby couch, her mind reeling from the revelation. "But why would he reveal this to you, Anakin? Is this part of his plan, somehow?" Anakin paused, conflict evident on his face. He offered to teach me the ways of the dark side. He knows about my nightmares, Padme. He knows that we're married and he knows that I saw you die." His voice broke slightly. "He promised he could help me save you." Padme stood. "Anakin," she whispered, "I'll be fine. Our child will be fine." "Your visions might be just dreams, Anakin. Or perhaps they're metaphors or something." "But what if they're not just dreams, Padme? What if they're visions, like the ones I had about my mother?" "Even if they are, Anakin, you cannot be serious about risking the entire galaxy for me. I don't want that. It's not right, Anakin. For now, let's just think about the now. Now, we need to inform the Jedi Council about what you've learned." Anakin shook his head. "No, I can't. If they move against him, I'll lose any chance of learning how to save you. And what if they don't believe me? What if they think I don't know what to do?" The room they stood in grew darker as night fell over Coruscant, the city's various lights beginning to twinkle in the distance. Padme led Anakin to the couch, sitting beside him. "Anakin, listen to me. If what you're saying is true, then the entire Republic is in danger. We have a responsibility to act. Me as a senator and you as a Jedi. What kind of world do you want our children to grow up in? One of freedom, or one controlled by a dictator?" Padme took his hand in hers, her voice firm but gentle. "We'll face whatever comes together, but we cannot let fear drive us to make the wrong choice." As Anakin and Padme grappled with the weight of Palpatine's true identity, events were unfolding at the Chancellor's office in the Executive Building. Master Mace Windu, accompanied by Kit Fisto, Agent Kolar, and CC-10, had arrived to confront Palpatine about relinquishing his emergency powers. So, quick side note, in the original timeline, right before Anakin tells Mace Windu that Palpatine is Sidious, Mace Windu and the other Masters were already on their way to Palpatine's office. Because Grievous was dead by this point, and Mace wanted to make sure that Palpatine gave up his emergency powers. So even in this timeline, Mace heads over to Palpatine's office. The 4 Jedi Masters strode purposefully through the opulent corridors of the Executive Building. The crimson-clad guards of Palpatine stood at attention as they passed, their force spikes gleaming in the artificial light. As they finally entered the Chancellor's office, the expansive view of Coruscant's skyline stretched before them. Palpatine, seated before his ornate desk, greeted them with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Master Windu," Palpatine said, his voice smooth and controlled. "I take it that General Grievous has been destroyed. I must say you're here sooner than expected." Mace Windu stepped forward, his posture rigid and his gaze unwavering. "Chancellor, with General Grievous eliminated, the time has come for you to surrender your emergency powers back to the Senate." Palpatine's expression remained neutral, but a flicker of something, perhaps annoyance or amusement, passed through his eyes. He steepled his fingers, considering his response carefully. "Of course, Master Windu," he began, his tone measured. "I have always intended to return these powers once the crisis had passed. However, we must consider the proper procedures." Kit Fisto and Agent Kolar exchanged glances, while CC-10's expression remained impassive. "The Jedi Council believes that the time for such procedures is now, Chancellor," Mace Windu said, his deep voice resonating through the office. Palpatine rose from his chair, moving to stand before the vast, transparent steel window. It was night by this point, the sky fully dark. "I appreciate the Council's concern," Palpatine said, his back to the Jedi. "And I assure you, Master Jedi, I share your desire to see democracy fully restored. However, we must remember that the Jedi Order is beholden to the Senate, not the other way around." He turned to face them at this point, his expression a mask of benevolent concern. "I propose we call an emergency session of the Senate tomorrow. If it is the will of the Senate that I relinquish these powers immediately, I shall do so without hesitation." Mace Windu's hand unconsciously brushed against his lightsaber hilt as he considered Palpatine's words. The other Jedi Masters remained silent, their 4 senses alert for any sign of deception. After a moment of tense silence, Mace nodded reluctantly. "You are correct, Chancellor. The decision ultimately lies with the Senate. The Jedi Council will await their verdict." Palpatine's smile widened, a hint of triumph in his eyes. "I am pleased we could come to an understanding, Master Windu. Rest assured I have only the best interest of the Republic at heart." With a respectful bow, Mace and his fellow Jedi Masters turned to leave. As they exited the office, Palpatine's gaze lingered on their retreating forms. Once alone, Palpatine again turned to the window, staring out at the sprawling cityscape of Coruscant. In the reflection of the transparent steel, he saw not the kindly face of Chancellor Palpatine, but the shadowy visage of Darth Sidious. His plan was still in motion, although he was slightly surprised at Anakin not having told Mace Windu about his true identity. Palpatine was confident that everything was proceeding per his plans. The fall of the Jedi Order was assured, and the only thing Palpatine was not certain about was Anakin Skywalker's turn to the dark side. But even if Anakin did not turn, that still wouldn't affect Palpatine's long-term goal, which was to transfer Palpatine's soul into Anakin's body through a process known as essence transfer, a Sith technique, which Palpatine needed to rediscover. And so, with all these thoughts in his mind, certain of victory, Palpatine stared at the darkness of the Coruscant night. As the Jedi Master's shuttle touched down on the temple hangar, the atmosphere was charged with an unusual urgency. The cavernous space, typically bustling with activity, seemed unnaturally still, as if the very air was anticipating the momentous events about to unfold. Mace Windu was the first to disembark. Kit Fisto, Agent Kolar, and CC-10 followed closely behind, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern at the unexpected welcoming party. Standing near the edge of the landing pad were 3 figures, Anakin Skywalker, his posture tense and eyes filled with turmoil, Senator Padme Amidala of Naboo, her regal bearings at odds with the anxiety on her face, and Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan, his normally composed demeanor tinged with unmistakable worry. Mace approached the group. "Skywalker," he began. "What is happening?" Anakin stepped forward, his mechanical hand clenching at his side. "Master Windu," he said, his voice strained, "have discovered something that changes everything." He paused, gathering his resolve. "Chancellor Palpatine is the Sith Lord we've been searching for. He is Darth Sidious." This revelation sent a shockwave through the group. Kit Fisto's headdresses quivered in surprise, while Agent Kolar and CC Tin had looks of disbelief appear on their faces. "Are you certain of this, Skywalker?" Mace asked, his eyes narrowing. Anakin nodded. "Yes, Master. He knows the ways of the Force. He's been trained to use the dark side." The young Jedi's voice wavered. "I took the liberty of informing our senatorial allies as well," Anakin said, gesturing to Padme and Bail. Mason looked away. "Our worst fears have been realized," he said, his voice low and ominous. "We must move quickly if the Jedi Order is to survive." The tension in the hangar intensified. Padme, however, remained composed. "Master Windu," she began, her voice steady and diplomatic. "While I understand the urgency, we must approach this with caution. Palpatine's threat won't simply disappear with an arrest. He could even use such an action to turn the Republic against the Jedi. Most of the Senate is already under his control. They will believe whatever he says, even if it's not the truth." "I don't believe you understand how this works," Senator Mace said. "With all due respect, Master, I don't think you understand how people behave. They trust Palpatine. They want to believe him. It would be very difficult to convince them of who Palpatine really is. Please just listen to us," she said. Mace considered her words, his hands folding before him in contemplation. At this point, Bail Organa stepped forward. "Master Windu, we believe the most prudent course of action is to call an emergency session of the Senate and present this evidence directly to the Republic's representatives." Mace's eyes narrowed, skepticism evident in his voice. "Senator Organa, time is of the essence. The longer we delay, the more opportunity Palpatine has to enact his plans, whatever they may be." Padme, her diplomatic skills honed by years in the Senate, interjected. "We understand your concern, Master Windu, but consider the ramifications of a direct confrontation. Even if you were to successfully arrest the Chancellor, the Senate and the courts are essentially untraced influence. There's a high probability that he would be exonerated, leaving both the Jedi Order and us in a very precarious situation. We must be strategic in our approach. Blunt force won't get us what we need." Mace Windu's expression remained stoic, but a flicker of understanding passed through his eyes. "So how do you propose we proceed without giving Palpatine the upper hand?" he asked. Padme stepped closer at this point. "By presenting General Skywalker's evidence before the Senate, we can create a scenario where it becomes much more difficult for Palpatine to paint the Jedi as aggressors. It's our best chance to undermine his support base before taking action." Bail nodded in agreement, gesturing towards Anakin. "General Skywalker is arguably the most famous figure in the galaxy right now. He's the hero of the Clone Wars, beloved by citizens across the Republic. His words carry weight that could rival Palpatine's own influence. And right now, Master Windu, that is what matters. Trust, beyond anything else." Anakin shifted uncomfortably at the praise, but remained silent. "This is our best opportunity," Padme concluded, her voice filled with conviction. "By bringing this information to light in a public forum, we force Palpatine to defend himself before the very institution he's manipulated. It's a gamble, but one with better odds than a direct confrontation." Mace Windu stood silent for a moment, his mind working through the complex web of political and strategic implications. The distant hum of Coruscant's never-ending traffic filtered through the hangar, a reminder of the trillions of lives that hung in the balance. As the discussions intensified, Anakin found himself drifting away from the conversation. The voices of the Jedi Masters and the Senators began to blur, fading into a distant hum as his mind wandered. The weight of recent events pressed down on him, threatening to overwhelm his senses. The revelation of Palpatine's true identity, the fear for Padme's life, and the potential consequences of his actions swirled in a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Suddenly, Mace Windu's authoritative voice cut through the haze of Anakin's thoughts. "Skywalker." Anakin's eyes snapped back into focus, meeting Mace's stern gaze. "What about Ahsoka?" Mace asked. Confusion flickered across Anakin's face, and after a moment of disorientation, he gathered his thoughts, recalling information he knew Mace was most likely already aware of. "She's on her way to Coruscant," he explained. Mace nodded, then spoke. "Maul is likely Sidious's former apprentice. This Sith apprentice's testimony could strengthen our case in the Senate, providing additional evidence against Palpatine. Ahsoka asked for you, Skywalker. She had joined our meeting after you left to inform the Chancellor about Obi-Wan engaging Grievous." Anakin's brow creased in bewilderment. He wondered why Ahsoka requested for him, but didn't contact him. As Anakin grappled with this new information, Padme stepped forward, her voice filled with urgency. Masters, we must act quickly. If we call an emergency session and go to the Senate immediately, we can present our case before Palpatine has time to manipulate the situation to his advantage. Bail Organa nodded in agreement. But General Skywalker's testimony, the potential corroboration from this mole, the backing of the Jedi Council and the support of our various allies in the Senate, the Republic will be compelled to take this seriously. At the very least, the Senate would be forced to order an investigation into Palpatine. If the Jedi were to move against the Chancellor directly, we would lose this opportunity. The political fallout would be catastrophic. Kit Fisto spoke up at this point, his normally jovial tone tempered by the gravity of the situation. Master Windu, I believe the senators have a point. A public revelation in the Senate could potentially neutralize Palpatine's influence before he has a chance to retaliate. Mace's gaze turned to Anakin. Through the Force, he could sense much confusion in the young Jedi. Eventually, Mace nodded solemnly. Very well, senators. We'll do it your way. After all, he's gained all his victories in your arena, not ours. Turning to Kit Fisto, Mace said the following. Contact Master Shakti, inform her of these developments, and have her brief the other council members. We need to stay prepared if everything goes wrong. After this, without wasting any time, the Alliance made their way towards the Senate building. Bail Organa's fingers flew across his personal comlink. Within moments, encrypted messages reached a select few. Mon Mothma of Chandrila, Gideon Danu of Quat, Ki Ikwe of Pandora, and a handful of others. Each message contained the shocking revelation about Palpatine's true identity and the urgent need for action. As their transport glided through Coruscant's night sky, Bail continued his rapid-fire communications. Mon Mothma of Chandrila will call for the emergency session, he informed the group. With the support of our allied senators, it should be approved without delay. True to Bail's words, Mon Mothma wasted no time. From her senatorial office, she initiated the formal request for an emergency session, citing matters of utmost galactic security. With the backing of their allied senators, the request was swiftly processed through official channels. Moments later, the Senate's emergency communication systems sprang to life. Across the Senate district, official alerts began to sound, their urgent tones piercing the relative quiet of Coruscant's night. In the luxurious 500 Republica, senators were roused from their slumber or interrupted in their late-night activities. Comm devices chirped insistently in upscale apartments, embassies, and senatorial offices throughout the district. The Twi'lek senator, On Ta, in the midst of a lavish midnight feast, nearly choked on a galactic delicacy as his communication device lit up with urgent summons. In the Coruscant Opera House, Senator Mot Not Rab of Tarnub rose from his private box, excusing himself from the late-night performance of the Mon Calamari Ballet. Even in the shadowy lower levels of the Senate district, where some less scrupulous senators conducted their clandestine affairs, the alert penetrated. In a dimly lit cantina, Quarren Senator Tandra Domea abruptly ended a hushed conversation with the hooded figure, his tentacles twitching with agitation at the unexpected summons. As their transport neared the Senate building, Anakin's keen eyes caught sight of the sudden flurry of activity. Senatorial shuttles of all shapes and sizes were converging on the massive structure, their running lights painting streaks across the night sky. "It's happening," Anakin murmured, his voice a mix of apprehension and perhaps awe. Padme squeezed his hand, her own expression a mask of determination tinged with worry. As their transport touched down on one of the Senate building's many landing platforms, the group disembarked in a scene of controlled chaos. Senate guards rushed to and fro. Bail's comm device chirped one final time. He read the message quickly, then turned to the others. "It's official," he announced. "The emergency session will begin in 1 standard hour." The weight of the impending confrontation settled upon them as they made their way into the Senate building. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and they were at the very heart of the storm that was about to break. As the group of Jedi and senators made their way through the corridors of the Senate building, Anakin felt a sudden urge to reach out to Ahsoka. With everything that was happening, it was only now that Anakin wondered why Ahsoka had asked for him during her meeting with Master Windu. Stepping away from the others for a moment, Anakin found a quiet alcove near a large viewport, overlooking the glittering expanse of Coruscant. Anakin then took out his comm and dialed in Ahsoka's comm frequency. After a moment of static, Ahsoka's voice crackled through. "Ahsoka," Anakin breathed, relief evident in his tone. "Where are you?" he asked. "We're almost there," she replied. "Should be landing on Coruscant in about 20 minutes. "What's going on? I can sense something's wrong," she finished. Anakin glanced around, ensuring no one was within earshot. "Ahsoka, listen carefully. Maul might become very important soon. Ahsoka, we have reason to believe that Chancellor Palpatine might be Sidious." The silence that followed was deafening. When Ahsoka finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "What? Anakin, what makes you think that?" "It's... something happened, Ahsoka," Anakin replied. "We're about to announce it publicly before the Senate." "I'm worried," Ahsoka, I feel like I'm losing control over everything. Master, be careful, Ahsoka urged, her tone one of concern. Maul told me that Sidious has been manipulating you towards the dark side for a long time. He wants you to be his apprentice. Maul also said that he orchestrated the war to bring you there, to kill you, to make sure that you don't become Sidious's apprentice. If Palpatine is Sidious, it would explain a lot, Anakin, Ahsoka finished. Anakin let out a long sigh, his eyes fixed on the endless sea of light stretching to the horizon. The magnitude of the situation seemed to press down on him, as oppressive as the artificial atmosphere of Coruscant itself. I'll be fine, Ahsoka, he assured her, though his voice lacked conviction. Hopefully everything will turn out okay, and pretty soon we'll be discussing this on Coruscant. Trust in the Force, Master, and in yourself. I'll be there soon, and I'll help you with everything, Ahsoka said. As the communication ended, Anakin allowed himself a moment of introspection. The city before him, once a symbol of order and civilization, now seemed like a vast, glittering deception. How much of what he knew, what he believed, had been carefully orchestrated by Palpatine? Anakin wondered. Shaking off these troubling thoughts, Anakin made his way back to the others. The activity in the corridors were slowing down, indicating that the senators had almost all taken their spots in the Senate Rotunda. A palpable tension permeated the air as the remaining senators and their aides rushed to their respective pods. Padme caught Anakin's eye as he approached. It's time, she said softly, gesturing Anakin towards their assigned pod. Anakin walked into the pod with the senators, while Mace Windu and the other masters took a pod adjacent to them. And as Anakin settled into the senatorial pod, Padme sat beside him. Bail Organa stood nearby, and Mon Mothma, her auburn hair gleaming under the chamber's lights, radiated quiet determination. Gideon Danu of Kuat and Ki Ikwe of Pantora completed their immediate circle, their presence a testament to the growing coalition against Palpatine's machinations. In the nearby pod, Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Agent Collar, and CC-10 stood vigil, their Jedi robes a somber contrast to the opulent surroundings. A hush fell over the Senate chamber as Chancellor Palpatine's podium rose from the central floor. The Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, resplendent in his crimson robes, surveyed the assembled senators with an expression of benign curiosity. My esteemed colleagues, Palpatine's voice rang out, smooth and commanding. I must confess to some confusion regarding this emergency session. What matters could be so urgent as to disrupt the rest you also richly deserve after our recent victories? At these words, the pod containing Mon Mothma, Anakin, and the other senators detached from its moorings, gliding gracefully towards the center of the rotunda. The Chandrilan senator stood tall, her voice clear and unwavering as she began to speak. Honored representatives of the Galactic Republic, Mon Mothma began, her words measured and precise. We stand at a crossroads in our history. The information I am about to share will shake the very foundations of our republic. It is a truth that must be heard. She paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. For years, the Jedi Order has sought a shadowy figure known as Darth Sidious, a Sith Lord believed to be manipulating both sides of this devastating war. And today we have reason to believe that this Darth Sidious has been hiding in plain sight, using our own systems against us. A murmur rippled through the Senate chamber as Mon Mothma pressed on. We have, in recent years, witnessed the slow erosion of our cherished constitution. Amendment after amendment concentrating power in the office of the Supreme Chancellor. Executive orders have bypassed senatorial approval, redirecting funds from humanitarian efforts into military expansion. The famous Reflex Amendment, ostensibly designed to streamline wartime decision-making, has effectively silenced many voices in this very chamber. Mon Mothma's gaze swept across the assembled senators, her voice gaining strength. The Sector Governance Decree, which placed Moffs in control of entire star systems, has undermined local planetary governments. The Security Act has allowed for unprecedented surveillance of citizens, all in the name of safety. She took a deep breath before delivering the most shocking revelation. These actions by the Supreme Chancellor and his office seem to align less with the intentions of someone who wishes to serve the Republic and more with the goals of one who wishes to destroy the Republic. And now we have a testimony from none other than Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker. That Chancellor Palpatine himself is Darth Sidious. Gasps and exclamations echoed throughout the chamber. Mon Mothma then gestured towards Anakin, who stood, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. General Skywalker, would you confirm this for the Senate? She asked. Anakin stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly across the hushed chamber. What the senator said is true. Chancellor Palpatine told me himself that he knows the dark side of the Force, that he is a Sith. He is Darth Sidious. Mon Mothma nodded gravely. Furthermore, we have been informed that a former pupil of Sidious is being brought to Coruscant from Mandalore. His testimony will provide additional evidence of the Chancellor's true nature and his long-standing manipulation of galactic events. The Senate chamber at this point erupted into chaos, shouts of disbelief, anger, and fear echoing off the carved walls. Chancellor Palpatine raised his hand, and a hush fell over the tumultuous Senate chamber. His face, normally a mask of benevolent concern, now bore an expression of weary resignation. "My dear friends," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the vast rotunda, "I have a confession to make. I have held, from all but a few closest to me, secrets that I didn't plan on revealing this soon. But alas, this acquisition by Senator Mon Mothma has placed me in a position where I must reveal these secrets to you. For some time now, I have harbored grave concerns about the loyalties of certain members of this august body, and due to these suspicions, I've had several members of this body, senators and Jedi officials included, investigated without revealing it. And the findings from these investigations, my friends, has revealed some extremely uncomfortable truths. The reason why I did not reveal any of this publicly was to wait for more evidence to be gathered against these individuals. But because of what's happened here tonight, I will now reveal to this body and all those watching across the holonet exactly what my investigations, led by the Republic Security Bureau, has discovered." With the gesture, Palpatine activated a series of holographic displays that sprang to life around his podium, and then the same screens were projected in a much larger size for all in the rotunda to see. The images on this holographic display flickered with data streams, financial records, and communication logs. What you see before you is the result of a covert investigation carried out by our Republic Security Bureau. The evidence, I'm afraid, is as damning as it is shocking. The Chancellor's voice took on a somber tone as he began to detail the supposed findings. "Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrila," he began, highlighting a series of financial transactions. "These financial records of the Senator show substantial funds being funneled into her bank accounts through shell corporations which the RSP has managed to link to known separatist holdings. Similar patterns emerged for Senators Bail Organa of Alderaan and Senator Padme and Anakin of my own home planet of Naboo." Gasps of disbelief echoed through the chamber as more data scrolled across the displays. Flight logs and intercepted communications paint an even more troubling picture, Palpatine continued. "Multiple clandestine meetings with separatist agents, including some that coincide with major separatist victories against our forces." The evidence that Palpatine was presenting, fabricated with meticulous attention to details, seemed to grow more damning by the moment. Encrypted messages, apparently decoded by Republic intelligence, hinted at deep-rooted collusion between the accused senators and the separatist leadership. "But the betrayal, I fear, runs even deeper," Palpatine said, his voice heavy with a faint sorrow. "We must not forget that Count Dooku, the face of the separatist movement, was once a respected Jedi master. He was, in fact, the apprentice of none other than Master Yoda himself." A hologram of the Jedi Temple appeared at this point, overlaid with complex data streams and security logs. Our investigators have uncovered disturbing patterns of communication between certain elements within the Jedi Order and known separatist operatives. Palpatine paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the stunned senators. Then, with a gesture that seemed almost reluctant, he activated one final holographic display. "And finally, we come to the most painful revelation of all. Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, our celebrated hero with no fear, has himself violated one of the most fundamental tenets of the Jedi Code." The hologram at this point displayed an official document, its ornate script and seal immediately recognizable to many in the chamber. "What you see before you are the official marriage records from my home planet of Naboo," Palpatine announced, his voice heavy with disappointment. "These documents irrefutably prove that Knight Skywalker has entered into a secret marriage with Senator Amidala, in direct contravention of his sacred oaths as a Jedi. If even the greatest of the Jedi can fall so far, how can we trust any of this order? You see, my friends, what you've seen before you tonight is the culmination of a coup, a separatist plan to destroy the Republic carried out by corrupt members of this body and the Jedi Order." As the weight of Palpatine's accusations settled over the Senate chamber, a cacophony of voices erupted. Mon Mothma, her regal composure unwavering, rose to address the assembly. "Colleagues, I implore you to see reason," she called out, her voice cutting through the din. "These claims are preposterous. Our loyalty to the Republic is beyond question. Padme and Anakin looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Bail Organa joined in, his usually calm demeanor giving way to passionate defense. We have dedicated our lives to preserving democracy, not undermining it. These fabrications are a desperate attempt to discredit those who would challenge the Chancellor's ever-growing authority. Consider the timings of these so-called revelations. Why now, when we bring forth evidence of the Chancellor's true nature? Despite these impassioned pleas, the tide of sentiment in the Senate seemed to be turning against them. Voices of support for Palpatine grew louder, drowning out the protestations of the accused. Suddenly, a familiar snap hiss cut through the clamor. All eyes turned to the source, Mace Windu, his purple lightsaber blazing to life in his hand. Enough! Mace's voice thundered across the rotunda. This charade has gone on long enough. Everything presented here is a lie, fabricated to discredit those who would stand against tyranny. Palpatine's expression shifted to one of sorrowful disappointment. Master Windu, I understand your desire to protect your order, but the truth is not for you or me to decide. It is for the Senate, the voice of the Republic, to determine. The Republic Security Bureau does not make such grievous errors. I assure you, all involved will be given a fair trial upon their surrender. The Chancellor's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The charge of treason carried with it the weight of potential execution, a fact not lost on anyone present. Anakin, standing beside Padme, felt a maelstrom of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. Fear for Padme's safety warred with the growing rage towards Palpatine. As the tumult in the Senate chamber grew, Anakin's force senses sharpened, his focus narrowing to a laser-like intensity. The young Jedi could feel the balance shifting, the dark side growing stronger with each passing moment. As the situation escalated, several members of the Coruscant Guard entered the chamber, their red armored forms a reminder of the power at Palpatine's disposal. And as the situation escalated further, Mace Windu's mind raced, analyzing their predicament with the clarity of a seasoned Jedi Master. The accusation of treason, the fabricated evidence, and the palpable shift in the Senate's mood all pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Palpatine had outmaneuvered them. Mace looked around the chamber, taking in the angry faces of senators and the advancing Coruscant Guard, and in that moment, the Force spoke to him with crystal clarity. Surrender meant more than just arrest. It meant the victory of the Sith and the death of the Republic as he knew it. The other Jedi Masters, Kit Fisto, Agent Kolar, and Saesee Tiin, sensed the shift in Mace's resolve. Through their shared connection in the Force, they felt this determination crystallize into a singular purpose. Escape is the only defense. Anakin too felt the change. His own tumultuous emotions settled into a grim focus as he realized the dire nature of their situation. His eyes locked with Padme's, an unspoken promise passing between them. "We will not submit to this farce," Mace declared suddenly. And then, with a powerful swing, he brought his lightsaber down into the port's control panel. And as immediately as this happened, Mace reached out with the Force, his arm extended towards the adjacent port where Anakin stood. With a powerful pull, Mace yanked Anakin across the gap between the pods. Anakin soared through the air as a result, his eyes wide with surprise as he landed roughly in the midst of the Masters. The pod in which the Masters stood, and Anakin, at this point, plummeted through the vast Senate chamber, the air rushing past them as they fell. With practiced synchronicity, the Jedi Masters extended their hands, calling upon the Force to cushion their descent. As a result, the port's velocity decreased rapidly, coming to a gentle landing on the chamber's lower level with a soft thud. Anakin scrambled to his feet, his eyes locked on to the receding figure of Padme above. He watched helplessly as the Coruscant Guard surrounded her and the other senators. Suddenly, Mace Windu's voice cut through. "Skywalker, we cannot save her." The young Jedi turned, his face a mask of anguish and indecision, and sensing Anakin's internal struggle, Mace told him the following, his voice firm and urgent. "Listen to me, Skywalker. Padme will be offered a chance to corroborate everything that Palpatine said in exchange for the lives of her children and her. If we fail, that is the only chance she will have at survival. That chance will disappear if we try to take her with us. We need to go," Mace said. Anakin's eyes widened, and the reality of the situation sank into his mind. And before Anakin could say anything, the clatter of armored boots echoed through the chamber as the Coruscant Guard approached their position. The other three Masters, and Anakin too at this point, ignited their lightsabers, the hum of their blades filling the air. "Seize them!" Amida's voice boomed, and in response, the Coruscant Guard began firing at the Jedi Masters. And these weren't stun blasts, these were lethal rounds. As blaster bolts rained down upon them, the Masters moved with fluid grace, deflecting the blaster bolts away from them. Anakin, pushing aside his internal conflict, joined the defense, his blue blade weaving intricate patterns as he redirected the blaster bolts towards the troopers. With Mace in the lead, the group began to move towards their nearest exit. The Jedi soon burst through the ornate doors of the rotunda, emerging into the opulent corridors of the Senate building. The sounds of their boots echoed off the polished floors as they sprinted down the hallway. As they rounded a corner, Mace Windu spotted a large, transparent steel window overlooking the Coruscant skyline. Without breaking stride, he reached out with the Force, shattering the window into thousands of glittering shards, which he then used the Force to pull inwards, to make sure they didn't land on anyone below. "Jump," he commanded, leaping through the opening. The other Jedi followed, using the Force to guide their descent into a protruding ledge several stories below. As they landed, the whine of approaching sirens filled the air, signaling the arrival of reinforcements. Mace pointed to a nearby hangar bay, its entrance barely visible from their position. "There, we need to get to a ship." They made their way along the building's exterior, using Force-enhanced leaps to cross gaps and avoid patrols. As they neared the hangar, a squadron of clone troopers emerged, their weapons raised. The ensuing battle was a whirlwind of lightsaber strikes and blaster fire, with the Jedi trying their best not to harm the clone troopers. The Jedi moved as one, covering each other's blind spots and creating openings for their companions. The air crackled with energy as they deflected bolt after bolt, their movements a blur even to the trained eye. "There," Mace shouted, gesturing towards a sleek Eta-class police shuttle. The vessel's streamlined design and powerful sublight engines made it ideal for navigating Coruscant's complex cityscape. While it lacked a hyperdrive, its speed and maneuverability in the atmosphere were unmatched, perfect for evading pursuit through the planet's endless urban canyons. And beyond that, the Jedi didn't exactly have the luxury of choice at that point. As one, the Jedi began to move towards the shuttle, their lightsabers weaving an impenetrable defense. As they reached the shuttle, Anakin sprinted ahead, using the Force to override the security lockout. "Cover me," he shouted, rushing inside to start the engines. The Masters formed a semicircle at the base of the ramp, their lightsabers moving so fast they appeared as solid walls of light. And despite their efforts, a few clone troopers did fall. Inside the shuttle, Anakin's hands flew over the controls. The engines hummed with a low, powerful resonance, ready for immediate takeoff. "We're good to go," Anakin called out. Mace nodded to the others. The Jedi Masters retreated up the ramp, never letting their guard down. And as the last of them entered, Mace used the Force to slam the hatch shut, sealing them inside. Anakin didn't wait for instructions. The moment the hatch was secured, he lifted the shuttle off the hangar floor, pivoting it outside. Blaster bolts peppered the hull, but the Eta-class reinforced plating held firm. "Hold on," Anakin warned before gunning the engines to full power. The shuttle shot out of the hangar like a projectile, leaving a trail of superheated air in its wake. As they emerged into Coruscant's busy skyways, Anakin's piloting skills were put to the test, weaving through lanes of traffic and avoiding the incoming security forces. And as they began getting surrounded by security forces, Anakin sent the shuttle into a steep dive towards one of Coruscant's massive ventilation shafts. The levels of Coruscant's vast cityscape rushed past them with incredible speed as Anakin guided the shuttle into a steep dive. The towering skyscrapers became a blur of durasteel and transparent steel, their lights streaking by like comets in the night sky. As they plummeted deeper into the planet's lower levels, the traffic became increasingly dense and chaotic. Anakin's hands moved with preternatural speed across the controls, his connection to the Force guiding his every decision. The shuttle weaved and darted between oncoming speeders and transports, narrowly avoiding collisions that seemed inevitable to the untrained eye. "Hold on," Anakin shouted, as he barrel-rolled the shuttle to avoid a lumbering freight hauler that suddenly appeared in their path. To onlookers, the shuttle's flight appeared nothing short of magical. It danced through the air with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of reality, slipping through gaps that seemed far too narrow and making turns so sharp they could have torn the craft apart. Anakin's piloting skills, enhanced by his profound connection to the Force, allowed him to perceive and react to threats before they even fully materialized. And as they descended further, their pursuers lost track of them, unable to keep up with the Chosen One. So what would happen after this? Well, the story will be a two-parter, and the rest of the story will be explained in the video. What if Anakin told the Senate that Palpatine was Sidious instead of Mace Windu? But how do you think that story would go? Anyways, thank you to CJ Russell, Lord Newt, Rufus Nelson IV, Rashid, Aaron, Daniel Bell, Yes Marvinicius, Z-Cooksy1, Dallas Seeger, and Joshua Carnicle for supporting me on Patreon, and thank you to Michael Sampson and Robert Mercer for becoming channel members. Your support truly means a lot to me, and if you too want to support the channel for $1 or more a month, check out my Patreon if you have the time. Link should be in the description. Anyways, goodbye and have a good day.